Hi, welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. This is our GPU market update for August 2023, and we've got crazy news. Not only have GPU prices absolutely hit their historic lows on a lot of different GPUs, and they continue to go lower, but we've got AMD launching 2 new GPUs according to their announcement. We'll also go through the best price performance GPU in every single category, from 1080p to 1440p to 4K. Remember, if you get value out of this video, please give it a like, because it makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe, click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump into it. So we're actually suspending our sponsor spot for this video so we can make an appeal to you to support World Central Kitchen in their response to the horrible fires in Hawaii. Now, World Central Kitchen, it's a great nonprofit. They help feed people on the ground in their time of need. We've made a donation, and I'd ask you to consider doing the same. We greatly appreciate any support you can give. Thank you so much. Before we jump into current pricing and availability, which we typically do, I just want to take a quick time out and talk about our GPU prices actually going back up, because after the Prime Day sales, yes, I know during Prime Day, GPU prices hit their lowest point, their lowest, absolute lowest point during those flash sales. Those are flash sale prices. And then they went back up, and they actually went back up higher than they were just before the sale. And all of a sudden I saw tons of videos out there saying, oh my gosh, GPU prices are going back up. You missed the boat. It's too late. Look. What actually happened is during Prime Day and during these big sales, the retailers after the sale will jack the price back up. It's part of conditioning you to actually buy during the sale. So don't panic just yet. I really think GPU prices have a lot further to come down, although we are at the lowest point in the market right now. We'll go through that in just a second, especially with new GPUs coming. That's going to be a huge influence. So don't panic. Starting off on the AMD side of things, because this is where new GPUs are coming, and we'll go through where they're going to slot into this overall board. A couple of these other GPUs I think are about to go away. They are very, very low stock apparently in the US. Let's start off with the RX 7900 XTX. $919, that is the lowest price for this GPU right now on a non-flash sale. We do expect, like Black Friday, if there's another Amazon Prime Day like there was last year in October, we could see those super low prices again. But right now, $919 with the promo code. I will say this though, Newegg, please stop doing this. A lot of your GPUs now have promo codes, but you're not telling me how much the promo code is. I got to add it to the cart. Got to go into the cart in order to find out the price. It is super annoying, but these 7900 XTXs, they are the cheapest that they have been on a non-flash sale. Really no change to the RX 7900 XT, has just kind of settled into that $749 price point. You will note on this, I have removed the MSRPs, by the way. I just think that that data is actually becoming misleading to consumers. I really feel like the only point of MSRPs at this point is pre-launch to let you know about where you're going to find those cards in the overall market. I want to actually just look at street pricing, because that's the price you're going to actually pay. Jumping over the 6950 XT, no real change there, just a couple of models, but I will say the number of models does seem to be dwindling, as well as the 6800 XT. This is actually a big change. There was a $499 one yesterday. It has completely sold out. And I will note that right now, at least, it does appear that there's not many of these models left. Look, that's it. Newegg, you got 4 models, and then you're out of it. That is pretty crazy right now. And we are seeing some of the models that we haven't really seen discounted. They're probably just sitting at low stock anyway. They've all of a sudden been discounted. It looks like they are just trying to completely flush out the rest of these, at least at Newegg. Same at Amazon and other retailers as well. I will say the 6800, kind of the opposite story though, has come down to $429. That's a great price for that GPU, to be quite honest. And there are now 4 models at Newegg, whereas there was only like 1 last month. So I don't know what's going on there, but $429 right there for the XFX Speedster. Merc, that's a really, really good price, especially if you want 16 gigs VRAM. So maybe you aren't looking for something like the 7700 XT, although we'll talk about where that pricing is going to come in and the performance later in the video. Closing out the best 1440p GPU that just hands down for last year, the RX 6700 and 6750 XT has come back down to $319. Again, I think it's going to continue to hover around $300 until we get the 7700 XT, and then it'll probably go down, I hope, fingers crossed, to compete with the RTX 3060. No real other changes here except the RX 6600. It did bounce up from $179 in July all the way up to like $220 for a couple of days after Prime Day. then has come back down, currently sitting at $199. I do expect it will eventually probably fall back to that 179 price point. Before we jump over to NVIDIA GPU prices, let's check in on Intel because look at those huge price cuts. What is going on? 9% on the A750, but 25% on the 16 gigabyte A770. What is going on over here? Let's start off with the A750, 8 gigabyte. Now it's back down to 199. Remember, it had hit 179 on a flash sale, 199 a couple of months ago. So that's a welcome thing to see. And it's not the actual Intel one, it's the ASRock one and the Sparkle one. I hadn't heard of Sparkle. Last time I mentioned it in a GPU video, you guys mentioned in the comments that they have been around for quite a while. I haven't done any additional check on them, but the GPU looks pretty freaking cool. The other thing is for the Acer Predator Bifrost, it looks like they are also going to make an A750 card. $219 right now. That's a little more expensive, but $20. Checking in on the 16 gigabyte A770. So we want to ignore the 8 gigabyte one. Don't get that unless it gets cheaper for some reason than the A750 because they're about the same performance. It's really just the VRAM is the real difference maker here. So we got 16 gigabyte A770, the Phantom Gaming one, $299. This is the cheapest 16 gigabyte card on the market and by quite a lot too. The next one up is the RX 6800 non-XT for like $429. So that's huge. Only $10 more. You can get the Acer Predator Bifrost version with all the cool RGB, the dual fan technique. It's just totally awesome. All right, let's jump into NVIDIA GPU pricing and let's start off with the bundle that they just announced for all of their GPUs on the RTX 4000 series, 4070 and higher. So no 4060 Ti, no 4060 and no 3000 series GPUs. I want to include this because it is important, especially if you're an Overwatch 2 player. That's the bundle. If you follow the channel, you know that I was a master's level support in Overwatch 2. I've taken a timeout from that game, timeout from some other games too, like World of Warcraft, because we're moving right now. We're moving right now. So we will jump back into that, but not right now. This is the bundle, however. It's basically a $40 value. Again, RTX 4070 and higher only, and it gives you the Invasion expansion, PvE expansion to it. It gets you 20 tier skips, but there's a limit on that. A couple of thousand Overwatch coins and a bunch of different skins. So it is worth technically $40, and we can throw that in. But remember, RTX 4070 and higher only, and not the older 3000 series. I mean, Starfield, you can get right now with an AMD RX 6600 non-XT, so that's like a $199 GPU, you can get a $70 game. So come on NVIDIA, you gotta do a little better than that, but hey, if you're an Overwatch player, maybe this is enticing. Jumping over to NVIDIA GPU pricing, not a ton of change on the RTX 4000 series, big changes on the 3000 series, so let's just quickly punch through the 4000 series. No real changes to the 4090. I will say if you want one, it's nice that they're at the MSRP, but if you want one from a quote-unquote name brand, you're probably gonna end up paying yours a gigabyte one for $1649. You can get the white Zotac one for $1669, but look at that. You're really going to pay more like $1,700. And I do see that the pricing on some of these kind of more quote unquote name brand cards, right, or the big AIB cards have increased quite a bit in terms of overall price. So that's just something to keep in mind if you want a 4090. On the 4080 side, nice to see it come back to $1099 after kind of going up by $40 last month. Not a big change though. It's essentially the Asus Ventus model. You got a Zotac card here, a couple of other ones, all at that $1099. That seems like it's becoming the new MSRP. Again, I hate that term, of the 4080. This card is obviously still way overpriced, needs to come down a lot further. In terms of the 4070 Ti, again, we just see like $10 here, $10 there in terms of the overall price dropping. The WindForce 4070 Ti, $799, but the one that's on sale right now is the Zotac Gaming. This promo code, again, Newegg, you're not listing the promo code on the page. It kills me, man. Just help me out here. This is a $30 promo code that brings it down to $779. Unfortunately, the 4070 has gone up a little bit. It was $559 in June, then it's $579 in July, now it's $589 in August, and I think the reality is this card is just selling. This is the one card of NVIDIA's that is actually selling in some decent quantities. The RTX 4070 outside the 4090, which we all know is selling as well. $589 for this card because again, it's around $600-ish. 12 gigs of VRAM isn't terrible on it. Pretty good performance. So it's kind of in that gray zone right now. And as a result, I think that we've seen those prices come creeping back up from $560 back up towards $600. We won't bother with the 4060 Ti. Nobody's buying that card. It is down to $379. Nobody is still buying that card. And then the 16 gigabyte version of it still at $499. Although now you can actually buy models of it. They actually have them in stock if you want. And of course, we got the RTX 4060, which is a card that probably nobody should buy because it's 3060 with less VRAM on it for $289. Well, let's jump over the RTX 3000 series because this is where you can find some deals. And look at those pretty significant price cuts month over month. Let's start off with the RTX 3070. Now, you might say, Jason, this is technically not a price cut because last month you disqualified the GPU that was listed at $379 because everything else was listed at like $450 after that. Yeah, I just felt it was only one model and I wasn't sure it was going to stick around. But now Gigabyte has followed suit with Zotac and they've cut theirs down to $399. So I feel much more comfortable calling this an actual deal that people can actually find, because even if this wasn't the Zotac one, it's only another $20 to get the Gigabyte Eagle one. So let's go ahead and call the 3070 just about around $379. You know, the rest of them are still harder to find. I will say it's only got 8 gigs of VRAM, but it outperforms the 4060 Ti for the same price. So why wouldn't you buy this instead of the 4060 Ti? Again, just more of NVIDIA's lineup just not making sense right now. 3060 Ti, kind of the same boat, but I gave them credit for $319 this month. Again, it's one model here, PNY Virto. There's also one on Amazon that's, I think it's like $330 or $325 as well. You got the Asus Dual. This is actually a nice all-white card. Again, only 8 gigs of VRAM. That's its real kind of ouch point here, is it can't really outperform the 3060 12 gigabyte in a couple of titles because it runs out of VRAM, even though it's technically a faster GPU. That's its big failing. But right now, down around about $320. And then we've got the 3060 12 gigabyte, which is a GPU I have been recommending, and it's down to $269. $269 gigabyte WindForce model. Actually very nice. We had the Gigabyte WindForce RTX 4070 for a mini ITX build. I really like the cooler on this card. Obviously, it's a slightly different cooler than this one right here. It was the 3 fan instead of the 2 fan, but they did a really, really good job. $269 right now. You can get the ITX one for $279. They do go up from there. There's also one on Amazon for about $275. So the 3060 12 gigabyte continues to fall in price. And apparently there are still loads of these GPUs out there. And remember, even though it's not as fast as like the 4060, it's not that much slower, by the way. It's only a couple percentage. It's got 12 gigs of VRAM. And so it's not going to run out of VRAM in those harder to run titles, even at 1080p or 1440p on a lot of them. Closing out the 3060 8 gigabyte, which really should be called the 3050 Ti because it's a different card than the 3060. It's not just the VRAM difference. It's down to $249. I'd like to see that continue to fall because it's kind of a garbage tier GPU at that price right now. Same with the RTX 3050, $225, too expensive for that card. It's actually come up from $219. It's only $6 different. Let's jump into the news. There are two things I want to cover, but the first one is new GPUs. The second one's bad news, so we'll get to that in just a second. But new GPUs. Scott Herkelman, who's the senior VP at AMD, announced that yes, in fact, AMD will be announcing the Radeon team new products at Gamescom, which is going to happen on August 25th. It's right here, his tweet. But basically, Friday the 25th, we are likely to get 2 new GPUs according to leaks and rumors. Let's go over the leaks and rumors, and let's also talk about the performance we expect out of these, the price we expect them to be priced at, and what I think that they should be priced at if AMD has any sense and any kind of cutthroat competition left in them right now. If we scroll through, basically, we've got the 7800 XT and the 7700 XT. We know a lot more about the 7800 XT because some of the companies involved have accidentally, and I'm putting accidentally in air quotes because these leaks are not usually accidental, right ahead of a product launch. They want to build momentum for it, but it's got 60 compute units from what we know. That's a little fewer than we were hoping, I think. 60 compute units for the 7800 XT. We'll have 16 gigs of GDDR6 memory. We expect the performance of this, given this configuration and the architecture, probably slightly ahead of the 6800 XT, which I know people are like, well, wait, this is the 7800 XT. How is it only slightly beating the 6800 XT? So we'll probably get about 10, maybe 15% more performance. On the other hand, the 7700 XT, we don't know quite as much about. We believe this is from leaks like folks like Moore's Law is dead. He did a big leak on it. I'll leave it linked down in the video description if you want to do a deeper dive on it. I believe he said 48 to 54 compute units on it. And in that configuration, it would perform about where the RX 6800 non-XT currently performs. Now, in terms of the pricing, honestly, there have not been many leaks around it. To me, that says AMD still does not know what the pricing is. I've seen pricing up to $449 for the 7700 XT, and then for about $600, $599 for the 7800 XT. Honestly, if that is the actual pricing, that is terrible. AMD will have, again, completely fumbled away their opportunity. So let me tell you where I think these GPUs need to be slotted, because the 7700 XT should come in at the street price of the 6700 XT and offer more performance. Basically, if it's going to offer a jump from the 6700 XT to the 6800 non-XT, that's great, but it should not come in at a higher price than the 6800 non-XT, because that has 16 gigs of memory. So what are we doing? What are you really buying there? You're buying a little bit more power efficiency, but you're trading 4 gigs of RAM. I don't understand what would be going on there. This GPU, according to Jason, needs to be priced at $349, about where the 6750 XT is right now, because it's only got 12 gigs of VRAM. Remember, the performance is not the limiting factor. In 2023, it's VRAM is the limiting factor. So given that, that's where that GPU needs to come in at. The 7800 XT needs to be priced where I can buy a 6800 XT right now, because there should be a generational uplift. If it's only a 10 or 15%, and it includes AV1 encoding, and it still comes with 16 gigabytes, and it comes with much better power usage on it, I'm willing to buy that at the same price I'm buying the 6800 XT, which right now is around $499. $499. So you heard it here. According to Jason, call it a day there, AMD. Just call it a day and win this generation. It's totally open for you right now. Let's get to the second news item, which is going to be bad news, folks. I'm sorry about this, but it appears that NVIDIA has completely halted production of RTX 4000 series GPUs. That's, at least according to Moore's Law, is dead. Basically, he's saying his contacts in the industry are sharing with him that NVIDIA is shifting everything over to Hopper production right now. What is Hopper? Hopper is their AI generation of GPUs. It's basically, the way it works, it's like a GPU, except it doesn't produce graphics, it produces AI computes. That's the best way I can really put it in a nutshell. And right now, the profitability of these GPUs is insane, to the point that NVIDIA said, hey, we don't need any more gaming GPUs, we need more of this. In fact, they are estimating that the market for AI GPUs and AI server infrastructure is going to reach 150 billion by 2027. 150 billion by 2027. I'll also link this TechSpot article down in the video description so you can check it out. Really mind-blowing stuff in here. So you can see, if you're somebody out there, you're hoping against hope that NVIDIA is going to cut prices on their RTX 4000 series GPUs. I don't have any good news from you. And in fact, I think they will let those things rot on the shelves, because right now they are making money hand over fist in the AI market. Now, will this be a bubble that pops and they'll come back to gamers saying, oh, we're sorry, here, buy our GPUs? Or will it continue to explode in the way it has? Nobody really has that answer. We're going to have to find out. But short term, I don't see NVIDIA RTX 4000 series GPUs getting price cuts anytime soon. Jumping over quickly to used GPU pricing, let's look at used RTX 3000 series GPU prices. They continue to come down anywhere from about break even up to 8% on the RTX 3050. I think the ones that are hardest hit continue to be 8 gigabyte and less GPUs. Turning to Pascal and Turing generation cards, that's a GTX 10 series and the RTX 20 series. Again, continue to come down a little bit steeper than the RTX 3000 series. Jumping quickly over to RDNA 2, you can actually pick up some pretty good deals out there. Look at that 6700 XT. You can get one right now for $247 used, if you don't mind buying used. Then we've got the Polaris generation, that's the RX 570, 580, and 590. Pretty steep cuts on the 590. So all these GPUs saw a price decrease except for the 5700. Let's jump into the best GPU for gaming 2023 in August. Here's how we do it. We take all the GPUs out there, we put them in a big spreadsheet that are currently supported and have 8 gigs or more of VRAM. We take their performance, we put it in here versus an RX 570, and then we take the price, either used or new, depending on which is better. We do prefer new GPUs unless there's a 30% discount, and we get a price to performance. We then divvy these up up by 1080p, 1440p, and 4K gaming. Remember, if you want to dive in here, put in your own pricing, because this is US pricing, go ahead and there's a link to it down in the video description. Jump in here, jumping into the best GPU under $200. Look at that. We got a lot of options, including some new stuff at the bottom. 2 thumbs up there. Let's start off with the ultra budget options. The RX 570 continues for $56. Remember, that's an 8GB variant. There are also 4GB variants, but there's no price difference between them. So get an 8GB one. More closer to $100. That GTX 1070, my goodness, it's just clawing its way to the top of the charts here. Remember, that has 8GB of VRAM versus the 1660 Super, which has the same performance, but only has 6 gigs of VRAM. I'd go with the 1070. Once we get up kind of more to the middle, I'm really liking that 1080 Ti with 11 gigs of VRAM, if you don't mind buying a used car that might be up to 6 years old. If you want new, honestly, the RX 6600 hands down is the winner here. Why is that? Because it's bundled with Starfield right now. It comes with the basic version of the game, which is like a $70 value. So it just crushes. Honestly, if you want Starfield, it really crushes anything on this chart. I like the ARC A750, but unless it's going to come with a better bundle or something, it really needs to come down in price. Jumping over the best high FPS 1080p GPU. So this is where the score is 180 or higher. 10 gigs or more VRAM. That way you're not going to run out of VRAM in titles like Hogwarts Legacy, The Last of Us Part 1, etc. And less than $350. We already talked about the 1080 Ti. I absolutely love that. If you're open to buying a used card and you don't mind buying one that's 6 years or so old, that is a great pickup, because you are going to have to spend significantly more money in order to get another GPU in that VRAM range. And that's the 6700 non-XT, 269, good value. 2080 Ti, that's another potential value, but that's $329. It's double the 1080 Ti. The RX 6700, 6750 XT, honestly, brand new, continues to just kick some serious butt here. 3060, unless you absolutely have to have NVIDIA and a new GPU, because otherwise I would go for one of the older ones. I would get that because of its 12 gigs of VRAM, but it's really kind of further down. Intel Arc A770, man, that thing, it's getting close, but it still needs to make up more ground against these other graphics cards. Jumping in the best 1440p GPU. So this is where the score is 220 or greater on the graphics score, and we've got 12 gigs or more of VRAM. We'll go through 240 hertz GPUs in just a moment, but let's stay here. And right now, this is kind of a muddled picture. We are expecting the 7700 and 7800 will appear on this somewhere, and probably price cuts for the 6700 XT, 6750 XT, maybe even some other GPUs here as things kind of slot around. But as it stands right now, 6900 XT in terms of used values, great value. 3080 12 gig is also a pretty good value, and they're about the same price. I, of course, lean towards more VRAM, but that's your preference if you're an NVIDIA only person. 3080 12 gig is really, really good value right now. We talked about the 6700 XT, 6750 XT. They remain hands down great values, but probably want to wait to see if the prices get adjusted. Intel Arc A770 got a big boost. They're actually on this chart and they're in the middle of it. Keep going, Intel. I think you're going to have to cut that one a little bit further. And then what we've got here is kind of a muddled picture, but if you're an NVIDIA person who absolutely has to have RTX 4000 series, look at that. The 4070 actually makes it onto the list. They're at the bottom of the list. They're number 10 out of top 10 GPUs, but they are on the list at 589 right now. Not great value, especially with the 12 gigs of VRAM, but if you have to have NVIDIA and you only want RTX 4000 series, there you go. Jumping on the best 1440p 240 hertz GPU, so the high FPS, we want a GPU score of 300 or more, and we're sticking with 12 gigs or more of VRAM. So some of the weaker cards, I say weaker in air quotes, some of the cards that can't quite do super duper high FPS drop out here, like the 3060 12 gigabyte, for instance. And then we're left with some of the similar options. 6950 XT is up here at 589. Again, we're waiting to see where the 7800 XT slots in. So kind of still that muddled picture, but I will say the 4070 makes it kind of more the middle of the list. It's actually not doing that badly. Now we'll see how it does once AMD launches its mid-range GPUs to compete with the 4070, given that they probably will not be $589. And look at that, the 4060 Ti, amazingly enough, $499 actually makes the top 10, the 16 gigabyte one. But of course, it's getting crushed by anything even around that value, especially by something like the 7900 XT, which just smashes it in terms of overall performance. 20 gigs of VRAM VRAM on that thing. Quite a bit more money, $250, but still, that's the value you're getting. Jumping over the best 4K gaming GPU in August of 2023, and your options are pretty much AMD right now, unless you got a lot of money to spend. The reason for this is VRAM. It's just VRAM. We're looking for 16 gigs or more of VRAM. We're looking for a GPU score of 380 or higher. And honestly, that's AMD right now. Now, they've complicated the picture in that the 7800 XT is going to slot in here somewhere, and we don't know what the value of it's going to be. We don't know what the performance is going to be. We have a rough idea, but that's it. We don't know exactly. If you are an NVIDIA, have to have NVIDIA, go out and buy a used RTX 3090. My goodness, $717, 24 gigs of VRAM, super high performance, great GPU to go out and get. I know that's a lot of money for some people to spend on a used piece of hardware, but if you got to get something new, honestly, 7900 XT and XTX remain probably the best values on the ultra high end. The 4090, obviously, that's the king. They do not have to cut their price. All the other GPUs on here, except for the 4090, have come down substantially in price. The reason the 4090 doesn't have to is because it is the top. If you want the best performance, you're going to get that and you're going to pay that. And the 4080, again, I've bashed the 4080 enough. I don't understand why people buy this GPU, except that they want NVIDIA, they want 16 gigs, and so they stretch up and spend probably a lot more than they wanted to over like a 4070 Ti. Let's play everyone's favorite game. Should you buy now or should you wait? Well, we've got new GPUs coming. That's what AMD themselves are basically saying to us by saying the Radeon Group is going to announce new products with an S. That means more than one at Gamescom. So we're buckled up. So let's start off at the high end. At the high end, if you're looking to buy like an RX 7900 XT or an RTX 4070 Ti or higher end GPU, you got a big green light. Unlikely to really affect that side of the market, right? Because they're all going to come in slotting below that. Then we get more in the middle range. Anything middle range, and honestly down to the budget range, I would say time out on the field, because it's going to produce a ripple effect. Once those cards get slotted in, what's going to happen with the 6700 XT 12 gigabyte? Is that going to go to $280? If so, is that going to push the 7600 down? And what about the 6650 XT? Is it going to push everything down? So I would just call big time out on the field, everything in the mid-range and even in the budget segment, unless you're one of those ultra budget folks who are going to go out and buy like a used GTX 1070 or 1080 Ti, and you're like, I want 11 gigs of VRAM for $180. Big time out on the field. Let's see what AMD has to say. And I think this is a super exciting time to be in PC gaming. Can't focus, kitty. Come on. Remember, if you got value out of the video, give it a like. This makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe, click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. Speaking of cool content, did you check out our best mini ITX build guide? We go through everything that you need to know in 2023 to build the best mini ITX PC. And we'll catch you on the next one.